Last year, the government announced a review of the NHS Bursary system for English students. I'm here to discuss what this means with Louise McMenemy. She's chairman of the BMA Student Finance Committee and also a medical student from London. Louise, can you explain to me how the bursary system operates at the moment for English students?
Yes, currently medical students in their fifth and subsequent years of study are entitled to have their tuition fees paid for them by the NHS. They can also apply for a means-tested bursary. However, for all students, once they enter this system, they're only entitled to a reduced level of loan from the student loans company.
Okay, and I'm aware that there's a few exceptions to that, but broadly that's how the system operates for most English students.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions, for example, the graduate entry students. However, for the vast majority of students on 5- and 6-year courses, that's the system that they enter.
Okay, well that's how the system operates at the moment. Why is this consultation taking place? Why is the government looking at the NHS bursary for English students again?
The government made a commitment last year to look at the difference between the level of support available for degree and diploma students. This has come off the back of that, as well as looking at the funding in general for students, medical students.
Okay, and how is the consultation practically taking place? How will people actually be able to contribute to it?
Well, practically, if you have a look at the consultation, it's split into two sections. One section looks at options available which fall within the current budget, and the other section looks at options which fall outside of the budget. So it's important that students have a look through the consultation and at the different options available within and outside of the current budget.
Okay, well there are about 11 options, I believe, to look at, and there's more details on that on the BMA website, and we'll talk about that maybe in a bit more depth later on. What is the actual timescale for this consultation? I know it was launched in September 2009. When will it actually conclude?
Well, the consultation closes on the 11th of December 2009, and then recommendations were made to ministers. Ministers will then look over the recommendations, and we're hoping to hear back from them early in 2010.
Okay, and how is the BMA actually practically feeding into this process? How is it facilitating and helping students to get their views across?
The BMA have been very active in the whole process. We've been feeding in financial situations for different students along the way. From now, for the whole of October and November, there'll be focus groups run at all medical schools across the country so that students can individually feed back into the process.
And students can actually get a list of when their focus group is taking place on the BMA website, is that right?
They can, and they can look out for posters around their medical schools and maybe contact their local medical student committee rep.
Okay. And finally, why is it important that medical students, English medical students, actually get involved in this process? Why should they contribute to it?
Well, ultimately, we want to make sure we get the best deal for all medical students, and anyone who's in the NHS Bursary system at the moment will realise how complex it is applying to the Student Loans Company as well as the NHS Bursary. So we're aiming to simplify the system, but the only way we can do that is to hear back from students of their experiences so we can feed back into the process and the consultation as a whole. Okay,
well thank you very much for that, Louise. As we mentioned earlier on, there is a full presentation on the BMA website which lists the 11 options for the NHS Bursary consultation, and you can get that at www.bma.org.uk/student finance. If you want more information or more details, you can email the BMA at info.students@bma.org.uk.